Okay, hello. This is my Q&A session. I'm starting a little bit, I think, has this worked? I don't know. I think I started talking a bit earlier there. This is my Q&A session. I am running this just for the benefit of those of you who are feeling a bit panicky about TMA2. This isn't a coaching session, so I won't be giving any specific guidance on the TMA. But I will be giving roundabout guidance. So hopefully you'll find it useful. I can see there's nobody watching at the moment, so if nobody turns up, I'll just talk for a little while and then I will stop the broadcast. If you are going to join me, and I'll reiterate this in a second, there is space on the side of the screen for you to type your question. I can't see how you do that from my end, but hopefully it's self-explanatory. I've got several things in front of me here in the anticipation of having to answer something really difficult, which no doubt somebody will ask me. I've got my toolkit and I've got some notes, and I've also got a couple of bits of additional information about grammar, etc. So I'm just going to sort of chew the fat until somebody arrives, and if you don't, I'm just going to cry. Okay, I'm just going to start talking and then we'll see if anyone joins. Right, so I think I'll go over, first of all, go over what the question says quickly. Okay, so question for TMA2, take an example of a non-standard English phrase you've encountered and analyse how its grammar differs from what would be expected in standard English and or how its pronunciation differs from what would be expected in RP. And then if you pick a phrase that's if you only look at pronunciation, you must still choose one that's non-standard in terms of grammar and or lexis. These things, it's just maybe useful to note. Think of analysis of language as being on levels. So you've got 3 levels that you'll focus on. You've got lexis, grammar, and pronunciation. And if you remember, those things all come under the umbrella of dialect. So this fits in nicely to this idea of non-standard dialect. So there are 3 potential aspects that you're going to look at. You might look at them all, you might look at only one, you might look at 2 in combination. It really depends on the phrase that you've chosen. So if you find something that is non-standard in terms of the words that are used, but not in terms of the grammar, that's fine. Oh, hello, there's somebody here. Let's see. Hello, Fiona. Strange that you can't answer me back. I've never used this before. I've watched people use it. Okay, so Fiona has said, I'm here checking if you can see my message. Yes, I can see your message. So I was just talking about the question itself. Levels of language, you're to look at those 3 elements of pronunciation, grammar and lexis, and don't feel that you have to look at all of them. If you might find that your phrase isn't interesting in the respective grammar, you might find that all the lexis is what we consider to be standard, but just the word order or the sort of structure of the sentence is non-standard, or maybe the pronunciation. But again, remember the question does note that if the pronunciation differs from RP, which it probably will if it's a non-standard dialect, you must also ensure that there is another factor there that's non-standard, so grammar or lexis. Okay, so I can see 2 of you are watching me, which is nice, so thank you for taking the time. This is a really new way of teaching for me, so I hope it works, and it really will just be a short session because I am at work in my day job and I've got a meeting at 11, so it won't be a long one, but I thought it would be maybe a nice way to encourage some questions at this time. You're coming to a critical time in your TMA2, so I'll open the floor. If anyone would like to answer questions, please just type them in. Hopefully you can see how that works. Fiona, well done for working that out. Do type them in and I'll try and answer them as they arise. Don't worry if you don't have any questions. I'll just wax lyrical about the actual question itself. Okay, so hello June, I can see you there. There was possibly a slight delay on this. So it might be a bit strange. I might answer your question a few seconds late or whatever. So we'll wait and see. I would appreciate any feedback if you think this is a bit strange or doesn't work, then that's fine. And obviously remember, tomorrow we've got a tutorial. In fact, tomorrow I've got a tutorial for U214, but it's the Edinburgh group. So, and I've opened this session up to the Edinburgh group, which means that some of you will be watching. And also then my Glasgow group, we've got a tutorial the following Saturday. These are interchangeable, I suppose. If you are from my Glasgow group and you feel that you would like to come tomorrow to the Edinburgh one, let me know and I can tell you where it is. It's in Napier Murchison campus. Okay, so talking about TMA2, let's look back at the question. You're looking at your non-standard phrase, and you've got 3 tasks essentially. And I've already talked about this, so I won't go into much detail, but remember you need to do your context, your introduction to the phrase, and then you also need to say, describe it, and then you also need to explain it theoretically, give some information on the language. Please do feel free to ask me anything you like. But if you're not asking questions, I'll just give you a bit of rundown of what I expect. Let's take this first element, the introduction. You need to contextualize what you're talking about. You need to say where it's come from, how it's used in society, how you've come across it. Just give some basic info there. You've got 800 words, so I would say maybe 200 words on your intro as a ballpark figure, and then that leaves you with 300 for each of the rest of it. But I mean, structure it how you want. That's just a suggestion. So when you've contextualized it, you've explained it, said where it's come from, my granny used to use this or whatever, then you need to do your linguistic analysis. So some of you will be feeling really nervous about this, and that's understandable because you're being asked to do something that's actually quite difficult. When I was doing my English language degree, I did 4 years of grammar and 4 years of phonetics, and I feel it quite strange that you are having to do all of this in the space of 1 TMA. So I think the health warning is you are really, really not expected to know all of this. If you can indicate to me that you've read the books by using some of the terminology that you've come across to describe your phrase. So for example, if you look in the linguistic toolkit, you've got a section, chapter 7 on grammar. There are many different terms in there which will be new to you. If you can bring those in, if you can show me you understand what grammar is, that will be a key thing. Can you label your phrase? Can you just sort of do a basic grammatical analysis? That would be great. But even if you can just indicate you understand terms like verb, subject, understand how grammar operates. I did a bit of a search on online to find some examples of non-standard grammar, because in the actual book I don't think there is a great deal, in the toolkit there isn't a great deal of examples of non-standard grammar. There will be in the course books though. If anyone's familiar with Huckleberry Finn, I'll just read you a passage from Huckleberry Finn, and then I'll give you a brief insight into what's non-standard. I see Jim before me all the time, in the day and in the night time, sometimes moonlight, sometimes storms, and we are floating along, talking and singing and laughing. But somehow I couldn't seem to strike no places to harden me against him, but only the other kind. I'd see him standing, my watch on top of his, and instead of calling me so I could go on sleeping, and see him how glad he was when I came back out of the fog. And so on. There's a long sentence here, a long sort of extract here. You maybe heard a couple of examples of non-standardness, and obviously he has a southern accent, so I've not reflected that, but that would be another layer, and there may be some lexical stuff in there as well. Non-standard verb forms are his normal mistakes. He uses a present form or past participle for simple past tense, for example, see or seen instead of saw. That's actually quite common in Scots. I seen him, I done it. So that's verb forms. Also, his verbs frequently don't agree with their subjects in number and person, so he shifts tense with the same sequence. So agreement is another thing you can look at. You can look at word order. The main thing to do when you're looking at grammar is remember that in order to describe where rules are broken, you need to indicate you understand what the actual rules are, and that's again demonstrating your, sorry, I'm just flicking between screens, demonstrating your understanding of the concept of standard English and how dialects deviate from it. Okay, I'm looking at the time, that's 10 minutes, okay. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so if you can show that you understand some of these grammatical terms and how to apply them to your own phrase, that's great. You don't have to do really in-depth grammatical analysis. We're not asking you to be Chomsky here, just to show that you have read and understood the course books at this stage. Another thing, maybe understanding how to label a sentence, subject, verb, object, understanding about phrases, etc. These things will all be useful tools in describing what you see. I always think I make the comparison between Catchphrase. If you ever remember that program, it was say what you see. So part of your task is actually just really pedestrian. It's describing the obvious, and you did that in your TMA 1. So this again, first part is to describe your phrase and to make it clear you understand how it operates in a non-standard way. And that might require you to look at the standard itself and say how it deviates from that. Again, with pronunciation, the phonetic alphabet, the IPA, would be a useful tool. If you're feeling brave, you could try to demonstrate how the sounds of the phrase are different to RP. And remember, you need to differentiate between RP and standard English. You need to understand that these concepts are different. Standard English is a written standard, and RP is what the closest we have to a spoken standard without actually being a standard. All of these things can go into your explanation. And then again, linking back, so trying to say some more about what you've learned in the course, maybe contextualizing this. Maybe if you've looked at a phrase from Geordie, maybe you can find some similar work in Geordie in the course books. Maybe you can find you know, similar stuff that's going on that you can then explain what you found, why this happens. Maybe you want to link it to sociolinguistic aspects, such as whether somebody's male or female, and somebody's old or young, ethnicity, geographical location obviously is going to be one. See if you can understand how sociolinguists look at those things and compare them and correlate them with language use, and that will enable you to sort of pull back from just the basic linguistic analysis and give the wider picture. Now, I'm really conscious that I'm one, waffling, and two, trying to give you a lot of information in a short space of time. I think really that's all I want to say about TMA2, unless anyone has any questions, because I really don't want to go on at length. Obviously, everyone is able to access this later, but I don't really want to coach you. Okay, anyone have anything to ask, or are you all feeling confident? Your forum posting is due the 16th of December, so that means that you should be thinking about this now. Again, posting it, please post it to the right thread. I've made a thread in your forum, so it's important that you you adhere to that so that I can find everything and you don't get lost. And I'm available for the next week or two, however long it's going to. I don't even know what date it is. I'm going crazy here. It's a couple of weeks, isn't it? So if you want to phone or email at any point and ask me questions about the TMA, feel free to do so. A lot of you are still wondering what phrase to use. It's really difficult to say specifically what you should use, but try and find something that you think you can say enough about. So if you just find something with one word that is non-standard, then you're going to find it difficult to fill the space. Oh, hello, June. Thank you. Oh, scribbling down in notes. Well, hopefully it's not complete nonsense. Yeah, so make sure you come up with a phrase that has a lot of stuff in it that you can talk about. I had a question from Gary actually in one of the groups who was unsure about whether he should use a whole phrase. Some of it was in standard English and some of it was in non-standard. I would say the phrase can be as long as you like, really, as long as it's not more than one. I think a phrase you wouldn't want it to be more than a few words, but if you feel that part of it isn't as interesting, you could leave that off. If you think you've got too much to say, then you could always just look at elements of it. You don't have to look at all 3 levels of language, or you might not want to look at the whole thing. Just use your common sense. And if you have any real worries, then you can just get in touch with me, and I can hopefully point you in the right direction. Okay, so that's 15 minutes. I'm going to ask if anyone does have any specific questions that's tuned in. I can see there are 5 of you, so hit me with anything if you want, and if not, I'm going to just end it shortly, because I'm running out of things to say on TMA2 without answering a question for you. It's a lovely Friday here at Glasgow University, and I am in the middle of meetings and hoping that nobody's going to come to my door and knock and try and get me in. Okay, so I'm going to give it a bit of time because of the delay. What I can do is just hold off in case you have got any questions. I'm glad you don't, because that means at least I've maybe answered them, or the task isn't too difficult. One thing I would say in general as I'm waiting here is don't try to be the final word in linguistics. Don't expect to have the definitive answer. Okay, here we go. Good. So yeah, there's not a lot of real information about my phrase, as if it's dialect, colloquial, and just a wee bit obscure. How far can I go with my own ideas? That's a very good question, Fiona. Thank you. I would say not too far. You don't want to be too subjective. It's really important to remain objective. So by that I mean you can speculate on things, you can give your own experiences, you can discuss things in your own way, but I would say try and inform as much of what you're saying as possible with the course materials. That does 2 things. It sort of makes your academic argument more robust because you've got evidence for it, and it also demonstrates your knowledge and understanding of the course materials. So obviously you're ticking a couple of boxes there. So if you've got something that maybe I'll take the example, you've got a phrase that you use or your family use that's non-standard. It's really important that you give us information about who uses it and in what way. However, don't go into too much detail about that, because ultimately that isn't an academic conversation. You're not really shoring it up with proper scholarly support. So although you can use your own information, don't go too far. So yeah, I would say don't err on the side of caution. Try and back everything up. Try and seek out other evidence, comparable evidence or discussion in the course books in order to make your argument more robust and to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding. I hope that answers your question, Fiona. June, I know the probability is low, but is it okay if more than one of us has the same phrase? That's a really good question, June. It's fine. It will probably be a bit like the scenario where you turn up to a party wearing the same outfit. So it depends how you deal with it. You can be good-humoured, or you can get very upset about it and it will be terrible. But I don't think that analogy necessarily works. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. I think it'll actually lead to some really interesting discussion, because you'll probably have different experiences of it, or maybe you'll have the same experience. Equally, you're going to be comparing, and anytime you can compare evidence is brilliant. In addition to making your giving you more evidence to back up an argument that you're making, it's also going to show different perspectives on the same phrase. So I think that'd be really important, and it might lead to some really interesting discussions. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you do have the same phrases, probably because you're all in the same regional area. You've all got most experience of Scots, I would imagine. So I'm expecting lots of Scots phrases, but that's fine if you don't feel that that's not being original, because it's fine to use Scots if other people are. But also some of you might have experiences of other dialects, so that will be equally as interesting. Okay, so 2 good questions there. I can't even remember what I was saying before. The problem with doing things like this is that you are captured forever rambling, which is never good. Okay, right. I think I'm going to call it a day there, because I think I've given you enough info for now. However, that doesn't mean that this conversation is over. I'm going to post the link to this video in the forum, and I would like any of you who have follow-up questions or comments to post in the forum. I'll do that in both forums as I'm managing 2 groups. So I hope that this has been in some way useful. And if not, then apologies for taking up your time, but I appreciate you spending the last 20 minutes listening to me. And if it did work, then maybe we can continue to use it in some shape or form in the future. Okay, so that's me signing off. Bye everybody, and thank you so much for joining me.